Good afternoon and welcome to the August 18th meeting of the Murfreesboro Historic Zoning Commission. I am Assistant City Attorney John Tully, and I am sitting in place of the Secretary of the Historic Zoning Commission until we elect a chair. Amelia, could you first introduce our newest member?
I sure will. We have a new member on the board, Mr. Jeff Davis. Our chair has decided to retire and enjoy the retired life. So Mr. Dayton Brown has been graciously helpful in coming up on the board with us, and he brings a lot of experience with construction and new materials, and he has a great love for historic buildings and homes. So welcome, Dayton. We're very happy to have you.
Welcome, Mr. Brown. With Mr. Brown and the 7 other members, we have 8 total members of the commission, which means we do have a quorum. With that, I would ask if anyone would like to nominate someone for the position of chair for this coming year.
I nominate Mike Panesi.
Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, could we take a vote, please, on the nomination of Mr. Panesi as chair? Unless... Okay. Since there's only one nomination, could we please take a vote on Mr. Panesi to serve as chair of the Historic Zoning Commission?
Mr. Backlund?
Aye.
Ms. Bolden?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Busey?
Aye.
Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Mr. Prince? And Vice Chair Belcher?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
All right.
That means he accepts
With,
the nomination.
with that, Mr. Panesi, congratulations on your election as chair of the Historic Zoning Commission. Would you like to handle the election of the vice chair, or would you like me to? Okay. Let's do the same thing. If anyone would like to present a nomination for the position of vice chair for this coming year.
I nominate Michael Busey.
Okay. Are there any additional nominations? Hearing none, could we please take a vote on the nomination of Mr. Busey as the vice chair of the Historic Zoning Commission?
Mr. Backlund?
Aye.
Ms. Bolden?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Busey?
Doesn't feel right. Aye. There's a lot of B's.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same
Ms.
thing.
Graham?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
Aye.
Vice Chair Belcher?
Aye.
Congratulations to our newest chair and vice chair.
2-year term.
2-year term, I apologize. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Chair Panesi, please, you're welcome to take over.
All right, I guess I should move over there. I can sit. That's what it was.
There you go.
Well, thank you very much. All right. Any public comments at this time?
No, sir, we did not receive any requests for public comments today.
All right, and everybody had a chance to review the minutes of the May meeting? Any changes or questions or anything about those? Any motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Call roll, please.
Mr. Backlund?
Aye.
Ms. Bolden?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey?
Aye.
Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Chair Panesi?
Aye.
Ms. Belcher?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Okay. Now on to old business, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We have one item on old business today. It is a project that we have seen several times. It began in April of 2025. This is a continuation of that. He's come back with a couple of different renditions, and he has now when he first had the approval, it had some 25 conditions. He has come back and addressed a large majority of your concerns that he heard throughout the meeting, trying to get different meetings to try to get back to a place where it was like the house that was there originally. So today what we need to do is go through and have discussion and vote on the items that he did not really return back to. If there's anybody who has a comment about anything else, we can bring those up for discussion. But you're basically going to determine if you are going to be lenient in a certain area and remove something that was previously made a condition.
Yes, so technically, he's just asking to amend the prior certificate of appropriateness on these few items that he had not met. And so that's the question for the
The
board.
one that was approved in '25.
2025, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the last few meetings, none of that's relevant to this point. We're asking to amend what was already approved in 2025.
Correct, yes. The last few meetings are now made moot by his decision to go back to the original certificate of appropriateness in 2025.
Are we comfortable that other than the let's see, 3 or 4 that are indicated here on what was sent out with the agenda, that those have been satisfied, such as the dormer size and I don't know, Amelia, you talked about some of these, the brick piers, things like that. I know, are we comfortable that all those things have been resolved?
Amelia could speak more intelligently than I can, but yes, my understanding, based upon discussions with the Planning Department and the Building and Codes Department, is that Mr. Chambers has complied with all of these certificates of appropriateness, with the exception of the 3 or 4 that are called out in the agenda.
Okay, he has several notes in the ledger over here that are provided that explain exactly what they're doing. We did have to go through and review these several times with different renditions, and in order to try to get this completed. We did not actually get the piers shown on the actual drawings. What has been conveyed to us is that under each one of the now 6 piers and not 8 piers, that he would do an inlay. See if I can find that number. Unpainted brick veneer porch with 2 feet wide brick piers under each column accenting the porch brick. So he is going to do a wrap around each one of those to make it look like it's a pier. That's the intent.
Is it the intent then that the brick that's there now, that was going to be painted because it was sort of a hodgepodge of colors, that now there's going to be it's not shown on the drawing, but there is a wraparound to create the appearance of a pier that will be in unpainted brick, so part would be unpainted brick and part will be painted?
Well, I'm not sure what color he's going to put on there because we do not regulate colors.
Understand.
And this is not a new construction. It is a remodel. Therefore, he can't paint. It was not already painted.
So does,
Like, it didn't exist before.
exactly. So does that mean, just for clarification, because there's sort of this mix of all those bricks that they intended to paint, that would be left in that condition, or are they removing those bricks and putting in new bricks?
They are not removing those bricks. They're going to leave them the way that they are and maybe come back at a later time and ask to paint it. I do not have the authority
I understand.
to give him the ability, and he has to apply to do that.
I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. So with that being said, the wood windows, we got 1/1 windows on the front. He reduced the size of the dormer on the front. He chose to go with the single window as opposed to the picture that he found that had 2 windows on the dormer from the 1950s. He is showing the single door with a transom overhead. Trying to figure out, the steps, he shortened the steps, not making them so wide, and then he was supposed to put brick Piers, they're actually, let's see, that is called out cheek walls, 1-foot cheek walls that will go on either side of those steps to replace the cheek walls that were originally there in concrete. He is putting back the left side of the porch. Now, what he did, and he was given permission to do this administratively by myself when he was originally going to do a single-family home, to be able to push this portion of the house that was out front to the back to make it a side porch. So, this is the side elevation, and as you can see, he has replaced the side porch as well. The columns, he does label the columns as, I'm sorry, see if I can get this back in order. The columns, he said, are going to be 10-inch square columns trimmed in rot-resistant fluted trim boards with top and bottom caps. Columns are to be painted.
Do you know if the intention is to match the original in appearance? That's very close to the description, but I want to, there are so many examples existent on the street, as well as good photographs of the original. I think what we would expect is that they should match the original in appearance.
Not as they are now.
All right. So I could make him provide me with a drawing of what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And then I could administratively approve that if that's what you all would like.
I'm glad to see it. So, yeah.
I think what's there, what he had done originally, what's there now is not appropriate in keeping with the original house.
Well, they were very prominent. I mean, at the very beginning, I took a lot of pictures of those columns in the front. They were very,
You can scale the number of flutes. You could come up with a very accurate rendition of that. I think there's some almost identical to it across the street.
there was a floor, I apologize, I don't know what that's called, just details at the bottom and the top. There was more of a detail on the bottom. It was a lot wider than the actual column. But I have some really good pictures, and I will ask him, I mean, I may even take one of those and say, you know, if you'll initial and date this and say this is what it'll look like, that I could put it in the file with it, then
Okay.
we could move forward with that as well.
That's reasonable.
Shouldn't be hard to do.
Right. I have lots of pictures of the columns. Okay. All right, so that one wasn't on the list. The door, since we're all here anyway, I want your opinion on the door. I don't have, generally I would have materials. I guess it was like Thursday when we got all of this. So I didn't get materials for the actual door, but he said it would be a solid wood door on the front with the transom at the top.
Well, solid wood with a glass center and a glass transom. Okay. As depicted.
Yeah.
Was that transom a working transom, the original?
I don't know, Mr. Pecklin.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here for the previous meetings that concerned us, but my general opinion would be that everything should match what was there in size and proportion, detail. So the columns, if there was not a stone or a brick wall beneath the porch, if it was just piers, then I think it should just be piers. And the brick should be removed. If that is not,
He did talk about how, due to the condition of the foundation, not construction person, so somebody
Yeah.
else may be able to explain this better than I, but that he needed to make it a solid brick and to help hold up the foundation. Now,
yeah.
To
Well,
do
that
the
brick is,
concrete.
The concrete
brick is holding up,
do the concrete porch, that's right, to do the brick surround with a concrete instead of the wood porch due to the condition of the,
But the note is for a simulated wood, which would imply it's not a concrete finished porch.
I'm sorry, I
The
misunderstood.
note on here, am I
The
right?
tec- the
Alan?
texture
Amelia
of the-
talks about it being a, can I find it?
Porch floorboards to remain wood plank boards. And they had explained for support purposes is why they did the concrete with the bricks around.
The brick is only supporting the porch. It's not supporting the house. So, and I would ask the question, it might require some survey at some point by an architectural historian to determine whether or not the changes that have been made already and that may be made again will remove this building from the contributing status, which I suspect is probably going to be the case. That is, it will no longer contribute to the historic district because of the harm that's been done. And at that point, maybe it doesn't matter what happens to it,
It still matters.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to fit the neighborhood as it did before.
Correct. There has been quite a bit of change made to the home that it will no longer be a contributing structure.
The National Register District, I believe the nomination was probably, 76, 77, somewhere in there?
I think they did the initial in 84.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And if I may just clarify briefly, I think you are saying this, but just to be clear, I would recommend that the board be focused on the aspects of the house that are visible from the right-of-way. And so, for example, the facade of the porch as opposed to the internal structure of the porch, because I believe the purview of the commission is mostly just what's visible, the materials and the look, as opposed to the internal structure. So if he did use concrete as opposed to what was prior brick, as long as there's a brick veneer, that might be sufficient if the board believes it is, but that would be for your determination.
Okay.
Any other comments before I proceed?
So
Okay. Go ahead.
So where are we then on the porch? Or on it being brick as opposed to piers with the lattice or whatever you call
Well, that
what
would
it was?
depend on how it was described when the National Register nomination was written.
It just said wraparound porch when in the description of it. It didn't say an open air underneath.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't have lattice on it at one point.
Right.
I don't even think, this had metal.
It looked like it was a pressed metal surround that was
Okay.
applied
Oh,
over it
in
at some
the
point
50s.
in 1950.
Yeah, okay.
So the brick
And that might not even have been there when it was built in the early 1900s.
would not have been.
No.
No.
It would have been opened
I remember when the lattice was added, because I've been in the neighborhood for a while.
by,
But
might have been on the commission when that was done. I think a lot of that was done in the 2000s.
I don't think I was, but I do remember
Sorry.
that block receiving some attention from the mayor and the council in
Yes, it did.
whatever decade that was.
Yes, that was in the
One
early
block at a time.
2000s. But yes, even though it's not depicted on the drawings, he has had to label out that they would make it appear as though there are piers underneath each of those columns.
I feel like that's a reasonable way to mimic the look of having an open porch that you've later filled in, because that is very common on a house that's built with pier construction to then either at the time of construction or later on to fill in that space with essentially a single-run brick veneer, just to box in the crawl space area. So mimicking that look, I think, is a very appropriate for this era of house. Like 320 East College was, if you go know which one, we did that house 5 or 6 years ago with the Pulaskis. That was exactly how it was constructed originally. We actually replaced that veneer because it was getting weak. It was just setting directly on the ground. It was just purely decorative fill to fill the space between the pier construction. We blocked it in and stoned that to give it the look of a limestone veneer, or limestone foundation, which was again very appropriate for the time that house was built. So it's a combination of both of those things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, given the fact that we don't really have any historical significance of that, I think that's a fair compromise on that.
That's my other comment is, when was this house historically relevant?
Yeah.
It's in the overlay, but is there ever been a decade where we could say, oh yeah, that was a house that made this block stand out?
There are a lot of houses along this block that look similar. I mean, it's a
this is
style of that time.
One of the weakest blocks on all of College Street. And the houses around it, in the last 10 years, it's completely flipped. You know, there's still a handful of houses that are in rough shape, but there's been a significant upgrade in that block, and it's now one of the more attractive blocks on College.
Yeah, I think with this one, it's not so much about preserving historical features, it's more about putting something there that blends with the ones that are there and not taking away from historical features that may be present.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the dorm, we've got the columns back, we've got the windows the appropriate size. I mean, I see several things. It looks like you made a good attempt
Yes, exactly.
to get this back, and I know that if this has been sitting there a long time, I know that downtown residents would like to see this move as well, so. What other changes, Amelia?
Okay, so everybody good? Let's start. Can we have, okay, I'm going to approve the door. I think the door is what was intended to be there. I can administratively do that, but I wanted, since we were going to be here, I wanted your opinion on it. I don't know with the age of the house whether the actual transom was workable, Gib, and this will remain as a quadruplex. It will no longer try to be a single-family home. The rectangular stained glass window on the front porch was to remain, and he took that down and disposed of it and will not be able to replace it. So we need a motion, if possible, to not replace that stained glass window on the front porch.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me?
I move.
I second.
Good.
All right, take roll, please.
Mr. Backlund,
Aye.
Ms. Bolden,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Brown,
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Chair Panesi,
Aye.
Ms. Belcher,
Aye.
Okay, the next item is one that I had already made everything out before we got our last rendition of drawings, and that no longer needs to be looked at since he is going to put the floorboards on top of the concrete to make it look like a wooden patio, front porch.
Can I make a suggestion?
Uh-huh.
That not only just laying there needs to be a fascia board across the front that makes it look like where, you know, the joists would have supported the porch floor, and that can be applied. You know, you're basically replicating the look, but it would look odd just to have the boards laying on top of the brick.
Look like a band.
Yeah.
Agree.
How do we accomplish that?
If you make that in a form of a motion, number 17,
Yeah.
that the wooden floorboard planks whatever he calls them.
Yeah, I would suggest perhaps that you make a motion to approve number 17 as presented, but with the addition of a band. If you could describe what,
I don't understand what you're asking.
It's kind of like a trim that goes
Saying
on the outside of it, right? To,
To make it look more, I mean, you got your,
so you're not seeing the wood edges.
I think it would look more natural with a band board.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Yeah, so the motion is to approve number 17, but put a band board on that for the decking to make it look more like it was. Yes, yes.
so Amelia, does that make sense to you, since you'll have to be looking at this?
I'm assuming it's just so the boards aren't just, the board is what's showing it's going to be something, a fascia board in front of it that's going to actually look like it's boxed in.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be in concrete even, if it were just a band that, again, resembled.
Yeah, the brick's there, so you'd have to apply the band.
Yeah.
I think you needed
So,
to,
yeah,
it needs to have dimension
Party
to
or
it.
something that would be structurally, putting wood directly on that would be
Some kind
a
of
future
synthetic.
problem. But yeah, but you could do it with synthetic.
Some kind of synthetic,
material.
yeah. It's all up here, Amelia.
It's up there for you.
Tough one.
All right, so Vice Chair Busey made a motion. If we might have a second.
Yeah, let me amend it. It could be synthetic, I think would be. It would look wood, but it could be synthetic. So we probably need to make the motion approve number 17 as presented with the addition of a band around the porch perimeter to make it look like was historically, and it could be, probably should be synthetic, but I think we should just not dictate how it is. I don't think that's our role to dictate.
You could, but in this instance, you're giving him some direction, I think, in what he can do.
Direction, and let him decide what he wants to
Yeah.
make it out of.
Still
When-
mimic the aesthetic of
Does everybody
having that
agree?
band of a
Makes
wooden
sense.
frame.
Oh, I think when they say a simulated wood plank, I'm thinking that's some type of synthetic.
It is, it's like Trex, yeah.
Okay.
Well, does that also mean that the boards on that porch can be synthetic also, or
Yeah,
real
he-
wood?
What he's proposing is
Gotcha.
synthetic.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's proposing synthetic deck.
It's like you can use AZAC, or
Yeah.
another synthetic, to do a horizontal member, which is synthetic. That
Or, yeah, I think hardy would probably be what I would end up choosing.
there's a number of choices, yeah.
What's that? Well, I'm purely for that band board.
It's
gonna be-
okay.
Correct.
The band board you're talking needs to go on the ends of the wood planks.
Yeah, simulate the frame that the porch sets on. The porch deck,
So are we talking 4 or 5 inches?
yeah, probably.
It should match the original. Have them go back to the original photos and just say you're trying to replicate that appearance.
Yeah, in this bottom photo, you've got a
You've got it.
band board on there.
The photo with the lattice work?
The photo of the lattice work has a band board on it.
It's a band board on it.
We're saying it needs a band board back, but
At a board or?
And the porch normally goes over it, just laps it a little bit.
if you look right above the lattice, right before the wood decking, there's a band board there.
It's disguising, it.
I see what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay. With the concrete, even with the, right now, the brick is even with the concrete. So these synthetic boards are going to go above that so they could put this board in front of all of that to
Front
make it.
boards on the top go over the top of that. So it looks like the original is just not made out of wood, and it's supported differently. It's not supported by a wood frame.
Okay. So, motion in a second.
Oh, I believe Mr. Busey made a motion, but I don't believe we have a second yet.
Second,
All right. We can call roll, please.
Mr. Backlund?
Aye.
Ms. Bolden?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
aye.
Vice Chair Busey?
Aye.
Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Chair Panesi?
Aye.
Ms. Belcher?
Aye.
Okay, the last one should be relatively easy. There were no hanging lights on the front porch. He did request to put hanging lights on the front porch as well as beside the front door. He was given approval for the lights on either side of the door. He was also giving approval to put hanging lights, but they must have an 8-foot clearance, which obviously there's not a way to have an 8-foot clearance. So we just need to remedy that. You know, they're just going to be slightly down from the ceiling.
Or not there at all.
I'm sorry.
Or not have a hanging light. You could, that would resolve it too. I mean, you could do a
Flush mount.
Flush.
He's got 4 can lights that are going to be placed underneath.
Yeah, I don't think any hanging light, they're decorative. I don't think they'd serve any purpose. And I just say they can't be 8 feet, which is a safety issue, then just don't have the hanging lights.
Okay.
Of course,
Is that a
it's
motion?
off
Or-
as it's drawn.
Yeah.
The lights look so, the hanging lights look so small compared to that span of porch. I think it would be better just to leave them off.
Do we need a motion of some sort?
Yes.
Okay, I move that item 25 be amended to remove 2 hanging lights from the ceiling of the porch.
Can I ask a question on your motion?
Yes.
If he opts for a can light there instead, under the porch, would that be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think
He
that,
already has 4 of them in there.
Well, actually,
got 4 on
technically,
the
the way
soffit,
this is
right,
written,
in the
say in the
soffits.
soffit. So
Yeah,
actually,
soffit.
let me amend that. I'd say amend item 25 so that we remove the 2 hanging lights from the ceiling, but would permit for can lights in the ceiling of the porch. Not
Second.
in the soffits.
Second.
All right.
we have a motion, we have a second.
All right. We can call roll, please.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
You want me to repeat?
Whoever made it.
Modify, yes, to modify the condition number 25 to remove the approval of 2 hanging lights from the ceiling and approve for can lights in the ceiling of the porch, not in the soffits.
Is that because it's a code violation from a height standpoint? So it's not really a historic zoning thing, it's a code issue he's concerned about, but that not, so I would hit my head, I'm 6'2", I would bump my head on the light, is that what we're talking about?
I'm not sure that it's a code. I just know that at the very beginning, our historical architect at the time, he's the one that made the motion for that it needed to be 8 feet.
That seems a bit nitpicky.
Well, I would say that if they weren't there historically, then we don't put them back. Or, don't put them there. If they weren't there, they don't belong.
I would also perhaps suggest that if the concern is safety rather than the historic nature of the look, then the motion could say that he, meets current building code, for example, and then let the building codes department allow however low it can go under their standards. That would be another possibility. If the concern is safety or code rather than the historic look.
So, I mean, I guess I think about like the precedent, are we saying that you can't change any lights on the front of your house
Oh, no.
for anybody? I mean, or you can't, okay, you didn't have a hanging light, and so now therefore, you never was a hanging light there, so you never can put a hanging light on your porch? I mean, what are we, I guess, just think through the precedent that
No, because we've
We're
approved like
dealing with-
mounted on both sides of the front door. There weren't any lights at all on the
Right.
front. So that's been approved, and I know the commission's approved others in the past where people were changing out lights on either side of a front door. So, no, I don't think it's intended to exclude the potential for doing something that's appropriate, that you can see who's at your front door and you're spending time outside, or, yeah.
I guess I just need to understand our goals, just from a naive standpoint. Our goals here, are they about locking everything down or making our downtown, optimizing the livability, beauty, longevity of downtown?
Hopefully both. I mean, keeping it historic.
But they clash often, right? I think if this, something as simple as this is that is somewhat of a clash there. This is an incredibly unattractive house, and I feel like the dormer in particular, we're trying to protect the structure, the visibility of this house that's always been there, so therefore it has to always stay there. I know there's a lot of weeds we've gone through because of the way that the process started.
That is basically what the Historic District guidelines for alterations, that's what you're not supposed to remove any type of historical features. Windows are supposed to be the same. They're supposed to be in the same place where they were. You're not supposed to change the types of windows. The doors are supposed to be where they are. They're supposed to be the same type of door. It's because it has a historical designation. I
think one thing about that house, just regular maintenance and care and roofing and paint and all those sorts of things will improve the appearance, but we're not really an aesthetic zoning commission. We're a historic zoning commission. We're not here to make everything beautiful. We're here to maintain the historic integrity of these structures and the landscape.
If I may, to that point, I'll just read briefly from the Historic District Guidelines. The guidelines for alterations, this is section C, C9, subsection D for lighting. And it does say that original light fixtures should be retained wherever possible. When retention is not reasonably possible, replacement fixtures should be in keeping with the collective characteristics of the property and the surroundings. So it doesn't mean that you can't change the lighting or add additional lighting, but it does need to be in keeping. To your point, Mr. Backlund, it should be in keeping with the historic look of the structure. But it can be added to or changed, certainly.
That's definitely what I intended in my comments, as long as it fits. I feel like the argument is it wasn't there, so we can't ever do it. And I would say, well, but does it fit the design, the character of the house, the neighborhood? Then why can't we do it? That would,
Amelia, could you,
as long as it's safe. There's not a safety issue.
Right.
right, asking for clarification, did you already say that because of all the changes that have already been made to this house, that it would be downgraded from a contributing structure to a non-contributing structure as part of the historic?
There will be an inventory done. There's one done every 6 years?
Yeah.
6 years?
We
And at
don't
that
know.
point, the state will make that determination based on that's why we're trying to get it back to what it kind of looked
There is a
like.
possibility it could retain a contributing status.
The way
and so
that it
is
is
what we're
right
trying to
now,
make.
sitting out there and what he's done, it would definitely, but, I mean, it's possible that because he's got the windows back the way it was, and he put something on that looks like piers, he's making it look like it originally looked.
Okay, so there's still a possibility that it might be a contributing structure.
I don't know
I
if
know
he
we can't-
removed
that's
so
not up to
much
us, it's
of
up
it.
to the-
I am afraid he removed so much of it that it's not going to be contributing. I would say he removed.
Well-
It seems like the answer is it likely would not be, but it is possible that it could
So
still
we
be
still need to keep
contributing.
that in mind.
Yes.
Another question for clarification. You said that the idea that the hanging lights have to have a clearance of 8 feet came from an architectural historian who used to sit on the commission, but we don't know the basis for that recommendation?
He just,
Okay.
Well, if you look at the drawing, and if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like the clearance there is 7 feet from the ceiling of the porch to the actual bottom. So if that light fixture hangs down 1.5 feet, or more.
I've got 7 feet plus 1 foot 2 inches.
Yeah, 8 foot
8 foot 2, and that, 8 foot 2 is what and I don't know, that's not actually the ceiling height, that's the height of the door,
Yeah.
the top of the transom on the door.
I'm looking at this,
An additional space above that as well. But that does put that light below 8 foot clearance. Yeah.
Just one other note, if I may. Given that this was just a requirement that was put in place by this body,
Yeah.
this body can freely choose to change that requirement if there's no reason to keep it. This body does not need to stick with that limitation.
And that also, the can lights, does have the ability, he has asked for 4 can lights in the soffits. Are you now saying you don't want them in the soffits, or just the 2 that were hanging could be in the ceiling, soffits or do you want all of them in the ceiling and not?
My suggestion was that they could do, in response to a question here, that you could do can lights in the ceiling of the porch if you wanted illumination for being able to see in the evening, et cetera. That makes good sense. There was another conversation we've had in the past about soffit lighting, which I know has been approved in other buildings. So it's a question of, there's the dark skies things we were talking about, where you're trying not to have everything so illuminated by the soffit lighting. So that was just, you could alternatively put the can lights in the porch ceiling as opposed to illuminating the soffits.
And
The commission-
along with the 4 he's already got approval for, so he could have 6 total in the ceiling.
I don't know that I want to stipulate the number that he can have in his porch based off the safety he wants to have on the porch and how it goes around. I'm saying that we should have an option for illumination of the porch. The concern was for
I
the
think 6
hanging
works.
lights.
Were the hanging lights the only thing that was meant for us to discuss? Everything else was administratively approved,
Yeah,
right?
evidently. So
Everything else on the list, he has complied with.
Okay.
okay. I'm not trying to complicate it further, Amelia. I just,
So the soffit lights were already in the prior?
4 soffit
they were.
can lights were already allowed in the soffits, but now we're saying ceiling.
We can just vote the motion down and do something different. If it's better that we leave it as it is and you're only addressing the height clearance, is that what you're needing us to address here?
You can either say height clearance, you can remove them. You can either,
Have a motion?
She made a motion, but I guess we need to amend it based on the fact that the cans were already approved.
there's only 4 shown on here, and I don't know, personally, I don't know that 4 is going to like that porch.
so could he replace the hanging lights with can lights?
Absolutely.
If that's what we're saying.
Yes, that would be an option.
6 ceiling, 6
Okay, so you want to
ceiling.
amend it to say, we modify condition 25 to remove the 2 hanging lights from the ceiling. That's it?
Replace with
can.
They can replace them with can lights, yes, in the porch ceiling.
I'm fine with that.
I think that addresses the hanging lights
Okay.
thing. It's either hanging or no hanging, and then soffit lights in the porch, right?
Can lights in the porch.
Can lights. Sorry, can
No,
lights.
that's
Yeah, that's it.
I think that accentuates the 2 lights beside the door as well.
Yeah, those are fine.
Okay. Got a motion?
Second.
Okay. And roll, please.
Mr. Backlund,
Aye.
Ms. Bolden,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Brown,
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Chair Panesi,
Aye.
Ms. Belcher.
Aye.
All right. I guess we're learning a lot through this, right?
We
So
are.
having some good discussion, so
The,
We have to have good discussion.
absolutely.
Mike, if you want to introduce the next item, I think that will be good for everybody as a refresher course and
Speaking
for
of
Mr.
learning.
Brown to hear a little bit more about what historic zoning
Yeah,
guidelines and regulations are.
absolutely. So we're going to talk about Historic Zoning Commission overview, Murfreesboro Legal Department. John's going to present that, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, so good afternoon. This is a refresher for most of you and kind of a welcome to Mr. Brown on the basics of historic zoning. So I'm going to try not to dwell too long on this because a lot of us already know this, but I think it'll help to have a refresher. So the first, yeah, Amelia, do you have it? Excellent, thank you. I think it might have been embedded in your agenda as well, if you want
I
to pull it
thought
that
it
way.
was, and I'm having trouble finding it.
Maybe not. Sorry, if you'll bear with us on this. Amelia, I'll email this to you again.
Okay, hold on, let me pull this up. It's on this drive.
It was in the one you sent out to us.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what happened when I got off my computer. It's okay. Where did it just go? Lord. Okay, let's see.
All right, well, while Amelia pulls that up, I'll get going, so we're not just sitting here. So the first portion that I want to discuss is just the purpose of historic zoning generally. So this commission is created under authority given by the Tennessee legislature to create historic structures, areas, and districts. The purpose is to promote the welfare of the people, strengthen the economy, improve property values, encourage harmonious rehabilitation and construction, and preserve and rehabilitate historic buildings. So in addition, and I will send out this presentation to everyone so you'll have for your reference. In addition to state law, the City Council also provides for Historic Zoning Commission the historic overlay. That's Chapter 24 of Article 4 of the zoning ordinance. The stated purpose is the historic district is designed to protect and preserve historic and/or architectural value, to create an aesthetic atmosphere, strengthen the economy, protect and enhance the city's attraction to tourists and visitors, and promote education and patriotic heritage of the citizens. So that then begs the question of what is an historic district? Under state law, it's defined as a geographically definable area that possesses a significant individual structure or a concentration, linkage, or continuity of sites, buildings, structures, or objects which are united by past events or aesthetically. So in order to be considered a historic district, an area must meet at least one of the following criteria. It either has to be associated with an event that's made a significant contribution to history. It must include structures that are associated with the lives of historically significant persons. It must contain structures or groups of structures which embody the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction, or that represent the work of a master, or that possess high artistic value, or that represent a significant and distinguishable entity, A third possibility is if the area is yielded or is likely to yield important archaeological information. And the fifth is if the area is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. In our instances, I'll get into in a little bit, the stated continuity of our historic district is the variability of the structures over time. That there are a number of different styles and types of construction, as you're well aware, that define our historic district. And there's a map which I will send to you that shows you what the bounds of that historic district.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I've got it.
Yeah, I'm sure you're very well aware. Yeah. The next thing I wanted to discuss briefly is the Certified Local Government Program, which is established through the Federal National Historic Preservation Act and gives technical assistance and grants to certified governments. Murfreesboro has been a certified local government since 2003. Now, there are a number of requirements that we have to comply with in order to maintain that status, which a number of them we're doing here by having public meetings, having public participation at our meetings, filling commission vacancies within 60 days, making decisions on certificates of appropriateness in writing, submitting annual report to the Tennessee Historic Commission, maintaining a survey to inventory the properties. And the benefits there are technical assistance from the Tennessee Historic Commission. There's networking meetings for commissioners, and we get priority access to grant funding through Historic Preservation Fund grants. The Historic Zoning Commission, with regard to our specific districts, the East Main Street Historic District, it's identified as Murfreesboro's most significant concentration of residential structures built from the 1830s to the 1940s. The district is characterized by its stylistic variety. As such, the guidelines look at each structure as an individual entity with its own personality. So for this reason, this is important to remember. Alterations and additions must match the history of that particular structure as opposed to those of surrounding structures. In addition, the Historic Zoning Commission back in the 80s identified a second quality of the district as its consistency. So even with the variation in architectural styles, the district as a whole has what's defined as a rhythm and harmony due to, for example, setbacks, scale, material, etc. So all of you obviously are members of the commission. The commission must be composed of 9 members and must include at least one architect, a member of the planning commission, and a representative of a local patriotic or historic organization. Members are appointed to a 5-year term ending on June 30th. If a member fails to attend 3 consecutive meetings, the chair, with a vote of the majority, may recommend the city council declare a vacancy. And vacancies, again, must be filled within 60 days. One other important consideration for members of the commission is the conflict of interest rules. No commission member may participate in the debate or decision when that member or a family member in the 4th degree has a direct pecuniary interest in the property under consideration. So just because you know the applicant, that's not necessarily a conflict of interest. You still can recuse yourself for any reason or no reason, but you are required to recuse yourself if you or essentially any family member has a direct monetary interest. And then a benefit of that is any commissioner acting within their powers is relieved of all personal liability for any damage that will be defended by the city if anyone decides to sue. So with regard to the commission's powers, obviously one of your primary powers is recommending additions to historic districts or the creation of new districts. That's how our district was originally created, was by recommendation from this body. In addition, recommending guidelines for historic districts, issuing or denying certificates of appropriateness, as we just did, and inspecting properties within the jurisdiction, including making examinations and surveys. So the procedure for considering a certificate of appropriateness The commission may request detailed construction plans and related data pertinent to any proposal before the commission. So if you do receive a proposal that does not have sufficient data, you can request more. Within 30 days of receiving sufficient data, you must either, 1, issue the certificate of appropriateness, either with or without conditions, or 2, direct the refusal of the building permit, providing the grounds for refusal in writing. So in considering applications for building permits, you should give primary consideration to, number 1, the historic and/or architectural value of the present structure. Number 2, the relationship of the exterior architectural features of the structure to the surrounding structures. Number 3, the general compatibility of the exterior design, arrangement, texture, and materials proposed. And then 4, kind of a catch-all, you can consider any other factor, including aesthetic factors, which you deem pertinent to the historic nature of that structure.
What is the definition of historic? I mean, is that what we said earlier, whether it was connected with a historic person, as an event, a designer, or builder of note?
It can be all of the above.
Quality.
Yes.
Right? And what happens, what is, okay, but what if none of those apply, but it's still in the overlay?
So,
And
yes.
what if it's outside the overlay, right?
So if it's outside the overlay, then this body does not have.
No matter how relevant it is.
Correct. Correct. So, for example, the historic courthouse is one of the most historic structures in the city. It's outside the district, and so we have no say over that. In addition to the fact that it's owned by a separate government body, which is the county. So yes, regardless of this historic significance of the structure, if it's not within the bounds of the district, then this body does not have authority over it.
As then, regardless of the historic relevance of the property, if it's inside the bounds, we have authority over that
So
property.
that's where we get into the discussion of contributing structures. So a contributing structure under, I believe it's state law, or certainly under the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines, is a structure that is 50 years old or older. So if a structure is sufficiently old and it's within the district, then it is considered, or it can be considered to be a contributing structure. It contributes to the historic nature of the district. And there is a threshold, I haven't seen it defined anywhere, but there is some threshold within which if a number of your structures are no longer contributing, then you can lose the historic status of that district. Again, I haven't seen an exact percentage of where that happens, but there is a point. And so it's important for us to try and maintain the contributing nature of the historic buildings within the district, and that's part of the process of inventorying those buildings every several years. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
And so to your question of how do you define historic, you're exactly right. It's kind of all the above. It can be what's defined in state law, related to an important event or an important person. If it was built by a noted builder, or if it's just 50 years old and it's within the district, that also can be considered a historic
Got all these
structure.
very profound definitions, and then we got to catch.
And the other old stuff.
Yeah,
that's
and then all the stuff.
yes. So
Consider, is 520 East College, is that the brick duplex, is that considered historic? Or is that one, even though it's in the overlay, is it outside?
I'll let Amelia answer that, but one point that raises, it's important to note that the use of the zoning use of a structure is separate from the historic nature of it. So, for example, the house that we just looked at on East College, that was originally built, at least we believe, as a single-family home.
Right.
But then at some point, it was converted into a quadplex.
Right.
That conversion into a quadplex does not affect the historic nature of the structure itself.
Sure.
And the fact that Mr. Chambers, wanted to first presented us with plans to convert it to a single-family residence, and now he's going back to the original quadplex. That's irrelevant to our determination of the historic nature of the structure itself.
There's no value as regarding the Historic Zoning Commission of it being a tenant facility or a single
Right.
family.
Right, exactly. And similarly, if there,
Because I don't know, I feel like that does somewhat fall under the economic benefit of the
Yes.
downtown area too, like preventing, helping move tenement houses
Correct.
into being valuable assets. And so that
Right.
whole, the nature of that around this house in particular is,
Right.
is interesting and somewhat, I don't know, concerning. I feel like, that I'm, is our guidance for the greater good of the Downtown Historic Zoning Commission with what has been proposed and is going forward with this house in particular.
sure. Well, so similarly to the economic benefit of the historic district, I'm not sure that this applies in our district, but in theory, if there are other zoning classifications within the historic district, so for example, most of ours is single-family residence.
Right.
But if there were a portion of it that were zoned as commercial fringe, you could have single-family, but you could also have a convenience store, for example. And if someone bought a single-family house and converted it to a convenience store, that's perfectly permitted, as long as they don't change the historic nature of the structure itself. So I hope that makes sense. Essentially, regardless of how the structure was used previously, an owner can use it in any manner that is allowed under the zoning ordinance, under the zoning districts, so long as they don't change the historic features of the house, or of the structure, rather.
Of what is.
Exterior.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Hope that makes sense. Okay. So I think we've hammered that sufficiently. Another thing to keep in mind, in addition to alterations, there are other types of applications that will be coming before this body periodically. So in addition to determining the appropriateness of altering buildings, you will also occasionally be asked for permission to demolish a building or structure within the district, and there are very specific guidelines where it's appropriate to do so. Economic hardship is one of the most common arguments we see, but it is a very high bar to meet. In addition, you'll be asked to determine the appropriateness of external design of any new extension of any existing building or of new construction. Determine the appropriateness of front, side, or rear yards, off-street parking spaces, location of entrances, et cetera, that may affect the character of any building as long as it's visible from the public right-of-way. Because that's the criteria that's used by the state to determine contributing status. So your remit is to ensure that the areas of the structure visible from the right-of-way, which includes sidewalks, remain, historic. And then also determine the general compatibility of exterior design, arrangement, texture, and material of the buildings in question. But your powers do not extend to the consideration of interior arrangement or design, because again, it's not visible from the right of way. So if they want to completely gut the inside of the house and do all modern materials, an owner is permitted to do so. In addition, the commission should not make any requirements except for the purpose of preventing extensions incongruous to the historic aspects of the surroundings or enter into any building in the district without the consent of the owner. So you can walk along the sidewalk and see from the outside, but don't enter any buildings without the owner's consent. As a lawyer, I would strongly recommend you don't do that. The way that we enforce your determinations and your powers, we as staff in the city, is through building permits. A building permit is required for any alterations, additions, demolition, removal, or new construction that alters or contributes to the exterior appearance or which would have been required before the establishment of the historic district. And no building permit within this district will be issued unless the permit is first submitted and approved in writing by the commission. So it can either be approved administratively by Amelia if it's very minor, changes, but if it's anything of any significance, it has to come to the commission for approval before the permit will be released. In addition, property owners must maintain their properties, including no sandblasting or other destructive cleaning. The commission does not review or regulate paint colors, but may provide advice upon request. And while fences are not generally present in the district, they may be added if they are a similar material to other nearby fences and structures, and if they do not disrupt the visual harmony of the lots. Preferred fence materials are defined, and they are wrought iron, wood, or brick. So, now one consideration for alterations is, as we mentioned, buildings obviously can change over time, and the guidelines do explicitly state that those changes themselves can acquire historic significance and should be maintained if they have. Removal or alteration of any historic material or architectural feature should be avoided. Architectural features should be repaired rather than replaced, and replacements should match the original material. And this part becomes very complicated, but it does state that contemporary design for alterations should not be discouraged when the alterations do not destroy significant historical, architectural, or cultural material, and the design is compatible with the property and the neighborhood. So there can be modern updates to the external design so long as it remains compatible with the rest of the property and the neighborhood. And any alterations, to the extent possible, should be removable in the future. There are also guidelines for new construction and demolition. I won't go in detail on those because we don't see them as often. We'll certainly go into detail if you see an application for those. And then the last point is on the enforcement that I touched on a few minutes ago. The primary method is no building permits are issued without your approval, and any violations of the zoning ordinance are punishable by the maximum amount permitted under the Tennessee Constitution, which is $50 per day per violation. And also, if a person threatens or is about to perform work in violation of the zoning ordinance, including the historic guidelines, the city attorney can apply for an injunction to prevent that violation. So that was a lot that I threw at you, and I'm sorry that we did not have the presentation for you, but I welcome any questions that you might have.
What's the injunction?
I'm sorry?
What, for an injunction, what does that mean?
So essentially, if we as staff found out that someone was intending to demolish an historic building without permission, then we would file a injunction in court asking the judge to prevent that person from doing that. And if they do continue with that demolition, they'd be in violation of the court order, which with significantly more penalties, including criminal penalties. Right. But that would be a very abbreviated process, as you can understand. You know, we have to move pretty quickly. But there are ways that we can enforce that. It would be predicated, though, on us learning ahead of time of someone's intention to do so.
Would it be a criminal offense if it was destroyed before that happened then? Is there a potential for...
Not really. No, and so that was similar to the item that we just considered on East College, yeah, where there were significant changes made to a structure that rose just about to the level of demolition. Mm-hmm. Certainly, it was demolition of all or most all of the historic features of the structure without permission. But the only remedy was a stop work order to prevent any further work from happening, and that's enforced by the Building Codes Department. And then $50 per day fines accrued until those changes were remedied, which is where we are right now in that process. But no, there is no criminal enforcement, unfortunately. Again, as I mentioned, this is set by the Tennessee Constitution in the late 19th century. $50 per day fine is the maximum that any municipality is permitted to assess without going through a full jury trial. So,
question about certified local government.
Yes, sir.
And that's a function of the National Historic Preservation Act the law, which was passed in 1966, which allows cities to manage their own historic zoning commissions.
Yes.
And so therefore, we have permission, because we comply with the law, to maintain that level of being a certified local government. So there are requirements. How often is that reviewed? And what are the training requirements for the members of a commission to retain the status of certified local government?
Let me look up the training requirements and I will tell you. It looks like the only requirement is both commissioners and staff must attend at least one preservation-focused training session, workshop, or conference each year.
Per year.
Yes. And then the proof of that training is maintained by staff here for if it ever is
So
audited.
we are members. We receive email. We all receive an email from the National Association of Preservation Commissions.
Yes.
And they sometimes offer some training. I think, Amelia, you've mentioned some online type stuff or
There's some good ones.
Zoom. And so if we were to attend those individually or independently, then we would need to let Amelia know or someone know that we have attended that in order to meet those requirements.
Correct, yes. Yeah, I think you would just let Amelia know when you have, and if there was any certificate of attendance, you could send that to Amelia for her to keep on file. Or if you maintain that yourself, if we ever are audited,
Yeah.
then, yeah.
I know a couple of years ago, I say a couple, it might have been 10, but we had someone from the State Historic Preservation Office come and just present a session to all of us on the commission. It was on the TV. And that was a very good session, as I remember it, and I would recommend that we request that periodically for someone from that office to come and make a presentation.
Absolutely. My understanding is there's been quite a bit of turnover in the last few years of that office, but I don't know if there has been recently, but hopefully there's someone in a position that would be able to do that.
I think there's a new person.
Stevie Milskowski, he is currently in that role and has been for probably about a year now. And he's the one that'll be doing the presentation next week on Thursday.
On the
2:30.
computer?
Webinar, yeah. I sent that out to everybody, and it's going to be a really good session. It's only an hour.
Okay.
Probably about 45 minutes and 15 minutes for questions.
Okay. Anything else on that? Guess we have staff reports, other business?
One staff report, I want to let you know that we are making a change to the calendar. September submittal deadline should have been September 1st, but we need to move it to August 25th due to some internal office obligations. So that needs to be voted on or administrative?
I think we would request a vote on it, but it could be administrative if need be.
Okay, if you would vote on that we could change that so we could get it updated on our website.
So moved.
Second.
All right, can we call roll, please?
Mr. Backlund,
Aye.
Ms. Bolden,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Brown,
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Chair Panesi,
Aye.
Ms. Belcher,
Aye.
The other items, since the last time we've met, we had 3 administrative approvals. They were basically minor. One was at 205 North University. Last year, it was approved for them to, they were going to put in a concrete driveway and redo their drive-through carport. And they had a brick base around the bottom, but the end of their house where they had a sunroom, did not have that feature on it, and they wanted to mimic that on the building right next to it, adjacent to it. So I gave them administrative approval for that. That's basically what was there before they came before you all the last time. College Street, replace a fence with like kind. And then administrative approval for the replacement of architectural shingles and a rotten wooden siding on a dormer at 1027 East Main, Miss Loyola's house. So those were all the comments we have for that. I just wanted to also reiterate, next Thursday, 2:30. If anybody did not get an email with that link in it to sign up for that webinar, please let me know, and I'll be happy to send it to you. And I believe we've got everybody set up on the National Preservation. Okay, so everybody should be getting the emails now with all of the, you'll get an email a lot of times and it'll have a code on it. And then you'll get another one that doesn't have the code on it. You have to go back to the original one and get your code sometimes, but all the classes should be free, the majority of them, unless it's something in person. So we don't usually attend those. That's all I have.
All right. Any other questions, comments, anything? All right, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, call roll, please.
Mr. Racklin?
Aye.
Ms. Bolden?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey?
Aye.
Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Chair Panesi?
Aye.
Ms. Belcher?
Aye.
All right.
I apologize. I don't know what happened to the presentation. It was like it disappeared. I don't know if it had something to do when I added the minutes onto it, that it,
All right. You know,
It's in the, we all have it though, at least in our email, so we can go back and